Hello again, and welcome back to the Animite Tales Podcast. This week we're doing another character workshop, but this time it's Kane's choice. And Kane, you chose video game characters, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. This would actually be quite embarrassing if I'd written it on the front of the episode and also made a build, all for the sake of nothing. Yes, so anyone who does not already understand the podcast, this is using the Animite Tales tabletop RPG system. Similar to D&D, it is a tabletop game where you build your character, your stats, and obviously use your imagination to build and play alongside other people. Usually, preferably, together at the same table, although most of our streamed games, as you may notice, are through Discord. Despite this, we have come up with a couple of different characters, so we've come up with a character each based on a video game character. Now, this wasn't necessarily part of the rules, but something that I sort of tried to do is I tried to make sure that it wasn't any characters that were already previously existing in other worlds of fiction, but more specifically, characters that are video game only. So if they existed in the video game, if they showed abilities purely in the video game, that's sort of what we were basing it on. And I just spoke to you guys. Turns out that we all did the exact same thing. That we created from a game, trying to avoid games that actually had characters in it. Although I think I'm closest to the razor's edge for mine. Although I feel like Kane, yours works as a character, as you said, but yours is quite close as well.
Mine's just a technicality, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it still works, but yes. So I guess we'll get into this first and foremost. My character is the character known as Talion from the Lord of the Rings games. Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. The reason why I've picked him is because he is a video game only character. He is considered not to be canon to the majority, if not the entirety, of the Lord of the Rings universe. Although that he is partnered with Celebrimbor, who is actually a canonical character, the events that happen throughout the game and the abilities that they both use and show are not canonical so far that I know of to the Lord of the Rings universe, or at the very least, they are never used by any of those two characters. So again, this is my technicality. So we'll get into discussing the other two characters. Kane, tell us about yours in just a few words. What is the one that you've chosen?
My character is Umbra from the Elder Scrolls universe, who is technically a weapon, but technically an entity that is a character, slightly.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. No, that's it.
And Sam, what about yours?
I've chosen the boss from the Saints Row series. He or she or them is the leader of the Third Street Saints, and has a kind of radical shift of personality during the games, but it's kind of semi-consistent, roughly, in power-wise, from 2 to 4. And
Okay.
of course, mean the quadrilogy, and not that one that we don't talk about that came out recently.
What do you mean, Sam? There is no new game that came out recently.
No, Saints Row is thankfully dead, and we love it for that, because it won't be forced to, shit the dead horse.
Well, I guess we should probably get into it. We'll go backwards from here. Sam, your character is the boss from Saints Row 2 and 4?
2, 4.
Oh, 2, 4. Okay, 2.
Like 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Well, take it away. How did you build this character?
Well, say I will send some GIFs, because that's so people can see things that aren't. Well, I think it's pretty obvious that it has to be Toonchild and Dermal Armor for the boss, because of the various upgrades you can get in 3 and 4, and I believe in the second game, if you do enough, I think it's ambulance, like
Yeah, I
side
think so.
missions.
Yeah.
One of those ones you essentially become immune. No, I think it's like no, it's the fire department. I think you become immune to fire and various other, and through various other side activities, you can become immune to various damage types. So I also chose Toon Child because of the fact that they can just carry things on them at all times, like bazookas, and a planet load of guns, essentially. So, of course, they're level 10. They've
Okay.
got the favorite food and hard hitting. Actually, you see, this favorite food have to be a specific favorite food.
You have to choose it when you get it, but
Well, then it's obviously freckle bitches.
I'm sorry. It's obviously what?
Freckle bitches, which is their version of like McDonald's is like freckle bitches.
Okay.
Yep.
You've obviously never played Saints Row, Joe.
I don't think
if that's the one you're taking offense to, just you wait till I say any of the other store names.
I just don't think I paid that much attention to any of the things like that. Wow, okay.
Oh, that's more in the second game. I think freckle bitches doesn't show up in the third.
Yeah, well, because in the second game it has actually a mechanical importance, where in third and fourth, no store except really Guns and Fire and some of the other closed stores really matter.
Like Friendly Fire and Rim Jobs.
Yeah, they're the only ones that really matter in third and fourth. Where in the second one you actually have to go and buy health, or buy food for like regaining health because it doesn't regenerate. So,
Joe, that's Johnny Gat. That's a completely different Saints Row character.
No, I was just using that as like a thing, as like something I missed. Details.
True. Also, this is as you can see, rapid change over time from the various 4 games.
Drastic change there.
I should say that's the default character. I have discovered most people that have played Saints Row have their own boss. Have their own, like, what the boss sounds like and which voice they pick. Which I quite like, because it shows that it really is a boss in all of us. Because, it's a level 4. I went for the fire resistance, which is the superpower from thermal armor.
Okay.
Because that's one of the ones they can get immunity to quite quickly. And then level 5, the magic satchel, so they can carry all of their many, many weapons.
Valid.
6th one, I chose buff, just so they're slightly better at being like damaged. For 7 and 8, I chose the silly injury and exaggeration. Because they've taken damage that would otherwise kill most people at level 1, but because they I don't think I found the GIF, but there is a part where Zinyak, who is the main villain of the 4th game, essentially just lifts them up with telekinesis and bashes them into each side of the ship. When you're like Mach 3, which would probably kill most other people, except for the main character.
Well, that, and he drops you into a simulation, from basically the sky, and you crash through a building, and then you just get back up and you're fine. So,
and pretty much everything that happens in Saints Row 3, where you jump down onto an aeroplane and then go through the window and then fall through the back.
Without getting bruised, damaged, cut.
Or the game mode where you just have to go and get hit by cars and see how far you can go flying to get more
of course.
Yeah.
How could I forget that mode?
Or the one where you're mauled by a tiger, as you have to drive around and not get animal services to catch you.
Yes. Hey, you're the boss. You can get away with all crimes, including animal crimes. I mean, he is your best friend in the 4th game before he gets blown up.
True.
Okay. Level 9, obviously comeback, because whenever you get, quote unquote, wasted, you just wake up at a hospital. No matter how damaged or dead you should be. So. And for the level 10, I chose protagonist permeation and indestructible. from the Toon Child and Dermal armor, respectively.
To gain the double damage resistance, I'm assuming.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And because, of course, they are legendary class character, they have so many names. They are feared throughout the universe at this point, both in hell and heaven. They, of course, have two accolades, which I put it both into into buffs for damage resistance. So they'd have 84 physical / fire resistance. Now, of course, they have a lot of trades. I actually don't have much trades, but they're very key to the boss, I think. So they'd have driving, piloting, sailing, because they can fly. They can pretty much any vehicle they can somehow master in a matter of minutes. Even VTOLs and enemy spaceships, they just get in and bam, they were made to fly it, or drive it, or sail it.
If it's a vehicle, I can fly or drive it.
Exactly. One-handed guns and two-handed guns, because again, any gun, no matter what configuration, be it the what do you call the boombox gun?
Dubstep.
The dubstep, the dubstep gun, or the just the classic AK-47, or the Star Trek phaser, which you can get. Then obviously RPGs, because obviously, and then hand to hand, blades, thugonomics, and then SPMA. That's thugonomics, I think, is kind of goes over the full structure of how to run a crime syndicate. I think.
I mean, it definitely helps.
Yeah. I mean, because think of it like this. They go literally from nothing in the second game, to taking over the city, to becoming celebrities, to literally becoming the president of the United States, and then the last human surviving. I think thugonomics works well for that.
You know what I'd say? I'd say because I think you're right about all of this, but there's one thing. I think, in all honesty, SPMA probably not. Only because that it's less that they are trained in how they use their powers or have particular techniques. It's more just like, based on what you've shown and what you've talked about, it kind of sounds more like just they are built different. So therefore, because of their powers, it's just like, they naturally have these tolerances and these resistances.
I mean, that is the thing. We don't know the boss's backstory. They could have been trained. I mean, they are somewhat sociopathic. For all we know, they could be. They could have been a military person. They just kind of walked in under this.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I was thinking like mostly buffs anyway. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So that would increase the damage resistance exponentially.
Again, though, I don't think that you necessarily need it at that point, considering how ridiculous it is.
I know, but they do become invincible to all damage at one point. Like, nothing can hurt them. So I think they need more buffs.
I don't know. What was it? What is it when they get to max at that point? Like, without SPMA?
84.
Yeah, I don't think they need anything else.
You can always get more. And there's probably some like things like for Toon Child you can get like the infinite ammo thing we were talking about. I remember we talked about this a while back where they could just draw like an infinity symbol on the cartridge, so that they get unlimited ammo.
Oh, I know what that was for. Yeah,
Yes, you do, because you can get unlimited ammo in the game as well.
Hang on a second. I think that's actually an ability that we did actually add, because that we were having this discussion. I was like, you know what? Just for the poops and giggles of it, I'm actually I'm gonna add it to the game. Let me have a look. Toon Child.
Actually, I'm just going to show a picture. They went from this, the gang, to this is the last game that came out. So it did. To this.
Yeah, protagonistic permeation. If the user took the ability Magic Satchel, anything placed inside it will be repaired so long as it wasn't fully broken or destroyed. And any objects / weapons that require ammunition / charge will act as if they continuously have ammo / charge. So long as it had some before going in the user's satchel, this effect will only continue so long as the user's hold. Yeah, so pretty much as long as the user is actually holding the gun, their guns pretty much have infinite ammo. So they can use it as much as they want. Once they have protagonistic permeation. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. There'd probably be probably something like parachutes. There's probably something I can imagine they would need that I'm just not thinking of. Like maybe some kind of version of strenuous form where any physical damage just sends them skyrocketing. So like the Team Rocket flying off again, where they fly 50 feet into the air because of getting hit by a car.
I mean, to be fair, if you think about it, if we weren't so squishy, there is a certain argument that being hit by a car, we would actually like, if the power was high enough to sort of knock us off our feet, arguably because our body can't absorb the shock as much, and instead it just like takes it on the skin. There is an argument that we'd fly straight off of them.
Or actually, I suppose
get knocked
also
over.
like. I suppose also probably an SPMA to just negate fall damage.
I mean,
that.
if you have so much damage resistance, you would probably negate it anyway.
Oh, there is one last thing I added because this one I think is somewhat important for the character. Is the vice and virtue of the character.
Okay.
I think these are like the constants for the character. These are like the ones that don't change. I think the virtue is loyalty. Because they are incredibly loyal to their team, and they absolutely hate betrayal of any sort. And of course, the vices are anger, mostly in the second game, where they do a lot of very heinous things to people that annoy them or do bad against them, and greed because they want it all. And I think. Is there anything I'm missing, Kane? I don't think you've played much of the games, Joe.
Well, based on what I know, I mean that's most of it sounds pretty right anyway. To be fair.
So, Kane, is there anything I'm missing?
I don't think so. That sounds about right. To be fair, I'm just trying to think because I'm basing this more on like the sort of 2-3 personality because 4 would be lust because you can fucking romance everyone. But
actually, yeah, it's weird that he's not really lustful as a crime boss.
No, if anything, they kind of don't care about it. It's only in the 4th one where it really becomes a thing.
Oh, but that's just mocking. That's mocking the BioWare romance options.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so I think all those make sense, to be fair.
So what we're saying is we want you all to play Saints Row 1 to 4 and no other Saints Row.
Yes.
Yeah. I suppose Gat Out of Hell, but only if you...
That was alright.
Yeah, but it made Agents of Smash happen, so...
Just make sure to get the Christmas DLC for, what was it, 4? Where you can, like...
Oh, where you help Santa out?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fun DLC.
I think the one question I have is, I was just looking at the numbers. How come it's 84?
Because it's 2 times, and it's two boons, so it'd be plus 10.
Gosh, you didn't explain that bit. That was where I was sort of getting confused. I was like, how the hell are you able to get 84 with only one set of levels? Like, jeez.
I should have rephrased. We'd have 2 accolades being,
right.
The boss. I think that'd probably be his accolade is the boss, considering we don't actually know what their name is.
Yeah.
So, like in the first game, I suppose the first accolade would just be player. From the first game, we were just called the player.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't have an accolade at that point, so they'd only get it when
I
they
mean,
are the boss, right? So
Yeah.
I think the accolade would come whenever they get blown the hell up in at the ending of the first game after they've conquered it,
yeah,
and they become like second lieutenant of the gang. It's like, yeah, player, and then blowed up, and you survive that. That's why they're invincible. They survived a bomb at point blank to the face.
I was also going to
Yeah.
say, this build, I actually quite like this build because Kane might already know where I'm going with this. I said about this earlier on this week about the exact same thing with GTA characters. Like, if you were to do the GTA characters, it would be roughly the same sort of thing as this. Where they'd have, dermal armor, the resistance, the comeback, literally everything that you were talking about. But I wouldn't give them such a high resistance and tolerance through the boon system because they actually are shown to never have any invincible traits, whether it's in gameplay or in anything else. But obviously with Saints Row, you can lean more into the wacky sort of side of it.
I'm not sure about the GTA protagonists for that because they are significantly more squishy. I don't think I don't think dermal armor would be theirs.
I think it wouldn't. I think it would to a certain degree because again they still get hit by cars and shot up, and yet they don't.
Well,
get
I mean
destroyed.
that depends because sometimes they get hit by cars and it doesn't to kill them. If enough speed has applied.
And here's something else that I was also going to say. It is canonical that they do get hit and blown up and a bundle of other things, and yet they just get slightly badly injured. At no point do they lose their limbs or get blown to complete nothing. So it's just like I'm sort of more basing on the. I guess you could say I'm sort of more basing on the game mechanics. Like you are a lot less tolerant to damage, but you're a lot more tolerant to injuries, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, it's more fun when it's more cartoony, considering the power as Toon Child. But yeah, I agree with pretty much everything there. I was just concerned about the numbers. I was like, where the hell is 84 coming from? But no, that makes sense with Bins.
And that's why the boss is the best, because this is a thing that can happen in games. Actually, is the gift not work?
Okay, so it does work. Kane, your character,
Oh boy,
Umbra from the Elder Scrolls.
yes, the most effort went into this character.
I bet it did.
Don't like the sarcasm.
What sarcasm?
Well, do I need to give a backstory for Umbra, or do I just go into?
I guess at least telling us the short and sweet version of it.
Alright. Well, Umbra is an entity, I guess, created by a witch or possibly Shirgoroth, good old man as god. From the power of Clavicus Vile is basically he wanted a new Daedric artifact, and he got tricked into basically giving away some of his power into this weapon. And when that happened, it then formed its own identity and personality called Umbra. So essentially, Umbra is just, well, he's a Daedric entity, I guess, technically, who resides in this sword, who essentially, I guess, goes around corrupting and stealing souls from people. So, the base weapon, we'll go with that first, is basically has two abilities in it. It has, yeah, that's it. It has melee weapon physiology with ultimate weaponry. Essentially, all this has is it has the ability to, the perks that it has. I guess I'll go over that first. It has, what's it called? The one where it allows you to take over people. Possession. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. and then it has 3 other like weapon forms, all blades, but essentially just allowing it to be great swords, or like claymores, basic sword, and one other sort of blade form, a smaller one, essentially so that it can sort of more suit for the wielder, and then it sort of then it's just buffs pretty much with, again, ultimate weapon mode, making it a lot more dangerous. The other one is absorption empowerment. I believe that's the one. It's either that or absorption regeneration. I'm still up in the air on that one, but essentially that is for the more mechanical game side, and I guess you could say lore-wise, of not only being able to absorb the health and stamina of its foes, but also being able to steal their souls upon killing them. Then the entity Umbra put into this sword, I guess game mechanics wise in this, is a soul stone or whatever. I've forgotten the specific wordings of it, from the it is Immortal's child, isn't it? With soul manipulation, and essentially using that, they are put into this with, as I've done at level 10 telepathy, with brainwashing. And I believe with that, they pretty much just probably have most buffs. But essentially, I don't really think they have SPMA or anything like that, because the entity itself doesn't really do much. It's more a slow corrupting, basically a more slow corrupting process, where once someone gets a hold of the blade, they'll use their telepathy to sort of weaken and sort of change the essentially weaken their minds, so that eventually it will be easier to use the possession ability on them, and alter their mind, making them essentially believe themselves to become Umbra.
So I guess sorry, go on.
No, although this isn't always the case, as in Morrowind, the warrior who has the Umbra swords wishes to die because he fell under the mind control factor for like a short time, and I believe his whole thing is he does a big killing spree, and then after that he sort of just wants to die in battle, and he can't get rid of the blade. Whereas in Oblivion, the person they eventually get over sort of goes full haywire and ends up calling themselves Umbra, in which the champion of Kvatch kills them and takes the blade, and that's about all we know they do with it, because they either return it to Clavicus Vile or they keep it themselves. So, yes, Umbra is more of a devious character. He does do more stuff, but that goes into book territory, not video game stuff. So
I guess the question here, because obviously I feel like I'm gonna say, is it technically a character in a video game?
I mean, technically it's an item, but it has a personality and a will, so it's somewhat a character.
The question is, does it speak? Does it have voice lines?
Yes.
Then it's a character.
That's really sort of where I have to draw the line and say, I think you could have it because, and here's the only reason why I allowed this. This is genuinely the only reason, is because it could be made. The build that you're talking about could technically be made as a build for a player. Therefore, they could actually play as Umbra, as a character. Because we've had it before where, in fact, there's even powers that allow the person to turn into weapons. There's even ways that now people are able to play as sentient objects because of the power known as soul manipulation. So there are possibilities in which you could do this. There was even one time where someone played for a short period of time as an actual animated statue of another character's abilities, and they were like a living person and all this lot, but actually their body, instead of made out of flesh and blood, it was just a statue that has just come to life and is able to move freely. So this is the only reason that I allowed it, because it's not necessarily that the thing itself is actually a character, but it houses a character, and by technicality, the build that you're making here is for a player to be, or it actually to be counted as something that would be an NPC. Just because it's not in the normal body of a character. Because normally I don't like it when people try and do these technicalities, but I think because we actually have the power to turn into weapons, and that actually is an ability. I mean, Ferb, Conrad's character that he plays in the current games that we're currently streaming, he plays as a character who can turn his body parts into guns. But originally, that power actually originates from the fact that he can turn into a gun. He can still turn into a gun, but one of his later perks is he can actually turn body parts into parts of his gun. So that is actually a thing that you can do. But obviously, the way that you've done it is it's sort of more a soul possessing the sword with a bundle of different abilities hidden inside of it. But it still has the ability to possess people who hold it, and as you said, eventually, like sort of slowly corrupt their minds and stuff. So yeah, this was a really tricky one for me to sort of be fine with, because it was so close to sort of being outside of the category that you yourself decided. Kane is muted. He's stunned in silence.
Yep, totally. But no, I don't know what you mean, Joe. It's totally fine.
Yeah. Next time we do video game characters, let's go do Fee from Skyward Sword. Who just turns
well,
into a sword.
I would have done the Rancor from Stars Connect, but no, that's from outside sources.
Why didn't you do Dancing Palpatine?
Oh, that's the same argument, Sam. That's the sad part, really. You're right. I should do that next time.
Next time we just do.
Next
time we should do video game characters that are also characters in other things.
I mean, I'm not gonna disallow that. Is that the whole build then, Kane, or are there other things?
I mean, pretty much. That's the whole build. I could go into technicalities about how things work, but nah.
Fair enough. or do you mean you haven't written any of them down? You can't remember all of them?
Oh no, I remember all of them, but I haven't written them down.
I guess we'll go back. I guess we'll go to mine then for the final one. Yeah, as I said, I chose Talion from Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. The idea is pretty much Talion is a human. That's all, folks. Good night. Thank you very much.
Cool.
No, so the build itself, if you actually wanted to build the Grave Walker build from that, it is Talion is a human. I mean, it's stated that he's a human ranger. That's it. So you'd have a human, a couple of different trades, and dagger proficiency, bow proficiency, and long sword proficiency. That's pretty much it. You could also get like a couple of things for like athletics to help him with move speed and climbing, but yeah, as I said, that's pretty much it. Now, the rest of it is now with the ring and the Celebrimbor stuff. So, with Celebrimbor, his ability grants Talion the ability of enhanced speed, technically enhanced strength, the ability to command people, and the ability to do stuff like teleportation and a bundle of other things. So first of all, Celebrimbor is a soul. So again, similar to Umbra, it would be a soul-infused object using soul manipulation to create it at first. Then the ring itself, because after a while they are bound to each other by the fact that he's wearing a ring. the way in which the soul works is that the soul has the ability to appear or even coat around the user or the wearer of the ring and enhance their physical stats, enabling them to do additional damage and even conjure up a hammer or a bow and arrow made out of the soul energy that allows the user to be able to enhance their damage output with those attacks. The teleportation and first of all, the teleportation is just teleportation. The ring basically is a double stone with teleportation and the ability of oh my gosh, I have to remember this now. Body augmentation, allowing the user to increase their speed and strength whilst doing this. Now, the ring also has another special ability where whoever's wearing it, if they die, it will then activate the teleportation and teleport the user to the most recent place that they had a long rest at. Upon doing so, 24 hours later, they will come back to life. And pretty much they will have it that if they die again, 24 hours again, they will teleport and then appear yet again in that location. So they have to go to a place and rest. As in the game, you go to towers, you rest at the towers, you use the towers, whatever. And whenever you die whatever is the last tower that you were at, you teleport back to, and it's anywhere between 1 all the way up to like 1 day all the way up to a week later or something. And so pretty much that is the whole build as and when. There was a couple of other different ways in which it sort of could get around, because the concept is that you could trade body augmentation with instead you could trade body augmentation with telepathy and just have it that way. So therefore you could use that to your advantage. Because in the telepathic abilities, one of the particular ones is the domination technique, that upon the user being able to touch their hand upon the head of another person or another creature, they can instill their will upon them and practically brainwash them. There's a couple of different ways in which you could do this. Telepathy is the easiest one, but you could arguably come up with a willpower technique, perhaps one that only Celebrimbor, the soul inside of the ring, knows, or you could potentially even have it that is potentially maybe a special technique or an SP made from soul manipulation. The list goes on, but to be entirely honest, it really depends. Personally, I wouldn't expect anyone to have any more than 2 powers inside of the ring, considering it already has the third ability of the additional soul creature inside of it, the additional person soul inside of it, which already grants a bundle of different enhancements. But in all honesty, if you wanted to be as accurate as possible, similar to what Sam you did last time, was making it as accurate as possible, regardless of whether or not people would allow it or not. So I would probably say it would be a ring that would have the soul infused into it using soul manipulation, and then having the 4 different powers of soul manipulation, telepathy, body augmentation, and then finally teleportation, allowing the user to be able to teleport to locations or teleport people to them, as that is an ability that you can actually indeed get in the game. Pretty much the trades and proficiencies I've already gone through, but any other particular ones I'm pretty sure. Potentially SPMA to learn and create additional special abilities and techniques. As you go on, you get different abilities that you can use, but in all honesty, the main ones are, as I said, sword proficiency, bow and arrow proficiency, and potentially athletics to increase the user's move speed and climbing speed. But that's pretty much it. Any things that you guys want to say to that? Do you think I missed anything?
No, I mean that is pretty accurate, to be fair.
Sam?
I don't really think there's.
Okay, no. Either that or Sam's mic isn't working.
Hello?
Oh,
Is it working?
There we go.
Yeah, what did you think?
Hello?
Hello?
I haven't played much of those games, so I can't say, but it's from what I've seen, it sounds accurate.
Fair enough. I think we should sort of get into the last portion of this because I feel like no one has anything to say about anyone's builds really. So I guess we'll sort of get into this. None of us really know too much as to how closely accurate it is. We sort of somewhat agree that they're good enough to sort of make sense. So I guess we'll move past that. Is it viable? Yes, considering we've seemed to have come up with something. Is it legal within the system? I'd say Sam, yours is the most legal, like 100%. It's actually just one person with a power, a couple of boons, and that's fine. That's absolutely perfect. I think mine would probably have to be second on that list because we've had it before that people have multi-stoned objects. And we, it's not exactly something that's unbeknownst. And then, Kane, I'd say your one is probably close second with mine. I would say that yours is definitely legal because, again, multi-stone weapons are a thing. We definitely have them. And look, I can't really say that mine's any less or any more legal than yours because mine is using the same rough concept of soul-infused item with blood transfused, etc., etc. So again, I can't really say too much to that in terms of legality.
So, I guess the real question is who would win in the fight.
I'm gonna have to say mine.
I mean, you're wrong, but okay.
I explain. I've got to hear this.
Okay. Well, obviously the boss.
No, but
do I need to explain?
Yes.
No, there is no argument needed, Sam. You're correct.
Yeah. Obviously the boss. I mean, Joe,
that's it.
You may have a bow and arrow on your side, but I've got a rocket launcher and a sniper rifle and guns and damage resistance.
I think you're forgetting the gun that makes your head really big, and dubstep gun, which stops you from fighting at all. And also, what is Talion going to do when someone runs up to him with a big dildo bat and starts smacking him?
Exactly. The thing is, I was only thinking of the powers. I wasn't thinking of the weapons.
Well, okay. Well, I mean,
because to be honest, if you do make the argument for the weapons, I think you're right because I don't think there's anything that anyone could do against a dildo bat and a dubstep gun.
I mean, think I guess if the boss just came in like hand to hand, it'd be like a D10 plus 12.
Right.
I suppose depends on what Talion would do.
Well, the thing is that if he's got soul manipulation, he can also heal from his own wounds. Also, if he dies, he can always come back. I mean, that argument isn't a great
boss.
I was going to say that argument isn't great because so can the boss. So I'd look at it without resurrections in tow. Soul energy, as we already know, doesn't matter what abilities you have, you can't really easily resist it. So it would also negate the damage resistance that the boss would have, because it's energy / psychic, it's crossbreed. So most, if not all of his attacks, as long as they're infused with the soul attacks, he could actually win. But the boss could potentially do minimum damage, which would be a lot higher. Because again, like, even if we were basing it off of the weakest variants without anything there, it's still plus 8 or so at maximum. Like,
it's plus 12, I think, because it's also, remember the buff, so it's plus 10 to those, plus the 2 from the start, plus the extra 1, actually plus 11 then, from the buff.
Okay. So that's my point, is like, I think really his highest amount of damage would be insane. Well, okay, it wouldn't be that insane, but his minimum damage would be insane. So he's always guaranteed to like potentially do like 10 or 12 or even more damage each hit. Whereas like with Talion, his swords probably wouldn't really do anything. He'd have to use his spectral armory.
Well, if you're bringing swords to the sword fight, I'm pretty sure. I mean, the boss has knives.
Yeah. Well,
and guns.
I'm just saying that, like, however, if he does use his spectral armory, which is through purely his powers only, which means that he has to conjure them up and create them to attack with, rather than actually, pulling out a real normal sword or something, he could still win, but there's no guarantee. Because, again, he can dish out damage, and the boss can't resist it. But the boss can dish out damage, and the minimum damage that he does is a lot higher than Talion's would be. Because there's no way that anyone can make me believe that he would be able to do modifiers of it, like modifiers of damage. It would just be purely dice, and as we know, dice are random. Whereas if you have modifiers, which is what the boss would have, there's guaranteed damage, a minimum guaranteed damage and a maximum guaranteed damage, but the minimum damage is still higher.
I also forgot the plus strength modifier, so it'd be maybe plus 15 then.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Depending on what the strength is.
Now,
I think the boss is pretty strong.
Again, you've also got to think of the fact that thanks to body augmentation, that Talion's unarmed attacks would also potentially be a lot higher as well. And also if they're soul infused, they can, because he does do that at one point in Shadow of Mordor. He covers himself with spectral energy to be able to enhance his strength to deal out damage, which at one point I think he actually does it where he can hit someone, it can freeze them, which basically means he can use like the underworld's cold. So with that being said, that pretty much guarantees that he has at least some aspect to be able to coat his hands in the spectral energy and hit people with it. If he does that, that's considered initial damage, which would completely negate it, any of the boss's damage. So the two of them would pretty much be evenly matched in a pretty decent hand-to-hand fight in that point. It just really comes down to super stats, decent rolls, stuff like that. I think
comes to the boss bringing a gun to a knife fight.
I think, in all honesty, if it was using their full arsenals, yeah, Talion loses, like straight up, like without a doubt. Because that's again, like, because that is practically like I've got my greatest things. I've got a sword and I've got a broken sword that is a dagger. What did you bring? Well, I brought sci-fi weaponry. And even guns and explosives that technically don't exist yet, or shouldn't be allowed to exist.
That's when the boss just rides up in a car and like bashes him from 50 feet away, just runs right into him.
So I think the answer really just has to come down to their abilities and powers. I think Talion definitely takes the win in the terms of abilities and powers, but I still think that's an unfair fight, and it's the same with the sword, because arguably, if you talk about Umbra, right? Are we talking about Umbra Umbra possessing someone, like Kane's choice, possessing someone and actually possessing a fighter? Because at that point, couldn't we just say, okay, Umbra possesses like a maxed out beefcake fighter?
No, Umbra's just there chilling. He's just on the floor.
Because then at that point,
he's the environmental weapon that someone can pick up if they choose.
Because then at that point, whoever picks him up is then under a concern. Talion might have a bit more resistance because that he has someone else alongside him that could also help fight back against it. But also, who's to say that that's a good or a bad thing? Because it doesn't matter. Because it's in the here and now. Because, say for instance, Umbra could potentially get them to then make them kill themselves. And another particular thing is, if Umbra overpowers Talion, could just force Talion to take off the ring, and then bam, suddenly he can't revive anymore. And because that Umbra can read minds through the telepathy, it would know his weakness at that point. So it's kind of a tricky one either way.
I think to be fair, I think Umbra and the boss might team up because they both have similar goals of killing a lot of people.
I think you're right. I think it would end up badly for the boss because, again, it's a powerful demonic presence. But I do think that it would end up being the boss would just go, yeah, cool, all right, let's do it, and just take the probably, I don't know, like make a casual insult of calling it of an oversized knife, and then just going around killing people with it.
I mean, as long as the boss doesn't have to kill their crew, I think that'd be the turning point. But other than that, I mean, kill all the other gangbangers. Be fine with that.
I think by that point it might be too late though, because again, it is the whole point is that it eats away at a person's mental status.
Oh, the boss doesn't have a mental state,
and if it possesses them, at that point they won't be able to control it. This is another problem as to why it could be an issue for Talion.
I mean, Umbra wins the long con, you see, because no matter who picks him up in the end, he's fine. So
yeah.
And if no one picks him up, he's still fine. So really, I win.
Again,
if
Talion brings swords, Thiggy brings guns, and Umbra brings a body, I think it is the boss that wins that. If it's just bare knuckle brawling, there's a good chance that Umbra could just be left alone and is technically not even included into the fight. But if one of them then gets the sword, Umbra wins regardless, because whoever takes it is eventually going to be possessed by it, and is either going to be forced to die or is going to eventually be killed through the means of eventually Umbra is just going to take them over. So yeah, I'd say that's kind of interesting. Going to it then, out of all these three builds, which do you think would be the most? I'm not going to say the most fun, but I'm going to say the most allowable or the most interesting to have in a game.
The boss.
I'm going to have to say Umbra.
I mean, wait. When you say fun, do you mean like? I'm
not saying fun. I'm not going to say fun. I'm going to say interesting to have. So if it's a character you're playing as it or something like that.
Oh.
Because I think the thing is, Talion would be kind of interesting. Don't get me wrong. To have that kind of character of like you die, you come back and stuff. But in a party-based game, this dude dies, he teleports, and you're telling me that he hasn't rested for like 3 days straight, and now we have to like go miles and miles back to get him. And that's just one. But also, it's a bit of a Gary Sue character of he has a load of different abilities, and he has a person in his head that speaks to him, and every time that he dies, he can basically come back. I think it's an interesting build, but that's about it. I don't think it'd be interesting or fun for other people to be around that build. I mean, depending on how you get it done, I guess. But that's a lot of ifs, ands, buts, and maybes. Whereas, like, I feel like the one that is the most allowable is definitely the boss. Like, 100%. It's the most easily allowable. But I'd say the most interesting is probably Umbra. From my opinion, if three people came to me and all three of them gave me these three builds, I would probably say that's really cool. That I could probably allow. But I'm probably going to be the most interested in how the hell are you going to play a sentient sword? I think the one that I would definitely allow is without a doubt Sam's. Because you went for something pretty simple, pretty basic, but it works. It fundamentally works. Don't know about the creepy arsenal. Like, I don't know about all those things. You'd have to probably have someone to get to make them, or you'd have to be able to make them. But you know,
I mean, even without the cool stuff, you still got a fair decent arsenal of basic guns.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the boss took over a city with AKs and RPGs in the second game. I think he can handle most of the threats they'd be up against with those kind of. Because we've seen what like Conrad's character can do.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Kane? What's your thoughts on this? If you were sort of being a DM or even maybe being a player, what would you prefer to play as or see someone playing as?
I mean, seeing someone play as the boss, like if we're including like a similar, if we don't just build, I feel like Umbra, but if we were going to add personality, I feel like I'd want to see the boss the most.
Okay.
It's definitely also the most allowable, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But because the thing is with Umbra, if you allow the personality, you've now got a player who's essentially for themselves and against everyone.
Yeah.
So his whole thing is self-interest, like for a long period. He does work alongside other people to benefit his own goals. So I mean, there's an argument you could say that that's the case and that they could change over time, but
if they're unapologetically evil, unless if you're actually playing a campaign where that's manageable, a majority of players are going to kind of get sick of that build of like,
yeah, that's kind of the issue. So
yeah. Oh, it's an evil sword. Yeah, cool. Look, can we make a deal? No. And now I'm going to start taking over your mind, and eventually you're just going to be Mushhead. Okay. Put sword down, walks away.
if it's just build, I think it'd be pretty interesting because not many people play as weapon-based characters, so that always piques my interest. But also, that just kind of how things would deal with that situation, and if you get stolen and things like that, that could be interesting.
Yeah. Although if you have possession and someone steals you, that's just kind of hard.
Yeah, it could. Yeah. So I mean, I think majority at the time I'd be probably more curious to see the boss, but I think with the Talion one, I'd be more interested in that as either an NPC or a boss you have to deal with.
Yeah. I think I agree. I will say I'm not too massively interested in the boss's build too much. I think it's mostly because this is more of a personal preference though. I think it's mostly because that it's not incredibly innovative in the terms of how the build expands. It's just is better at resistance, is stronger, is tougher, and that's it. And as someone who's been DMing for a long time, and you guys recently got up to a point where I have to be very innovative with damage types now, because I don't care what the number says, it might as well say infinity. For instance, in the terms of the damage, what is it? Oh my gosh. Felix has 50 points of damage resistance to fire, poison, and physical damage. Most people struggle to be able to deal 50 plus points of physical damage. So it's almost a guarantee that once you get past 50, you've practically got an immunity anyway. You don't really need any more than 50 points of damage resistance. And so for a character that has the ability to get up to 84, I think I would just look at that and just be like, okay, cool. You're now invincible. There's not really much point anymore. So I feel like that's sort of part of the reason why it's not interesting to me. But it's definitely if someone came to me and said, "Hey, I want to build basically the boss from Saints Row, and I pretty much just want to make it in this way. I'm going to be a Toon Child, and it's going to have this, and I'm going to be super resistant, and it's going to be really silly and funny, and I'm going to pretty much just be a melee and weapon fight." I'd still be like straight away yes, because you're pretty much saying to me that you want to be kind of like instead of the tank, like, oh, I'll stand in front of everyone and just soak up bullets. It's more like the bullcrap action hero video game character where you can just run through a hailstorm of bullets and shoot people down. And it's that unfair factor of, yeah, I just shoot you and you just you're now going to have to go to the hospital. You've shot me like 50 times and it's slightly annoyed me.
I mean, the boss pretty much is the Terminator at a point.
I do like that though. I do think that would work quite nicely in a campaign. I don't get me wrong. I think it is definitely the most allowable. I don't think it intrigues me as much as I think that it should.
Actually,
no, it's the personality of it. It's not like the main character of it.
Yeah,
that is the one question I wanted to ask, Kane. What is your personality of the boss? Is it the Cockney accent one?
It has to be.
Or
I mean, a lot of the time, I think I played as one of the female bosses.
Did you play the Russian one?
No, I should have. I think it was the one that was voiced by Laura Bailey. Out of my mind.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I tend to go for either the Cockney or the Russian woman because those tend to be my two
No,
boss levels.
that's fair enough. Those are
Actually,
pretty fun.
she is the most lustful actually because she keeps talking about wanting to go with beers.
Yes.
So
That's the thing.
I think-
that is one of the things, though, is
I
that
think,
personality can
clearly-
change slightly.
Yeah, although clearly best voice is zombie voice in number 3.
Yeah. I mean, Troy Baker, obviously, and is it Troy Baker?
Yes,
in part four?
I chose.
Troy Baker in part 4 is
I was going to choose Troy Baker, and I think it was like I can't remember who it was, but it was one Cockney accent, and I was like, "Yep, I'm doing that now."
Oh yeah, Cockney accent boss is main boss. I don't care. I don't care what the default is. That is the default Cockney voice.
So I guess Sam, we've already asked you. You already gave us a very simple answer of just yours. But if you weren't able to choose yours, what sort of would you go out of the two that we've done?
If I was DMing and or playing this,
Yeah.
well, I probably would go Umbra because, no offense, Talion's just kind of, yeah, he's got some cool kind of coolish powers. He's kind of boring as a character. He's kind of bland from like the hour or two I've played of it. He's very kind of stoic and kind of bland. Whereas the Umbra sounds kind of, may not be a likable character, at least has a personality.
Has dynamics to it. I think that's the problem that I had with Talion as well. Is like when I was building him, I was like, yeah, what are his personality traits? He really wants revenge and he really wants to kill things. And that could work in a party. In fact, arguably, it could work a little better than Umbra.
You forgot he's a simp for big spider lady. Another key part of his character.
Is it Shiggorath? No, it's not Shiggorath. What's
the
the
wrong
name?
game.
Yeah, that's the wrong game. In fact, that's your game. Oh my gosh, I can't remember it now.
I can't remember. It's some spider lady that I think Samwise kills
Yes.
in the movies. It's not what happens.
Yeah. Ah, damn it, I can't remember. But yeah, either way, yeah, I mean, he's not...
I think it's Sheloth or something.
Sheloth, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, no, Shelob, isn't it?
So,
Shelob?
Yeah.
I think, in all honesty, I do agree with you. Like, as much as I like the build, in the terms of the mechanics, if you were to play it with the... If you were to play it with the actual like personality, good lord, you'd be bored. Like it's like, okay, I'm out for revenge and I want to do this and I want to do that, and I'm very, very and I'm very driven. But if there's no, and we've seen this before in actual campaigns that we've streamed, if there's no way out for characters that have like this sort of dark path, they just eventually almost stick to it, and they're not entirely sociable, and therefore it almost becomes kind of muggy. Like there's not a lot of how do I put it this way? The character becomes way too rigid, and there's no flexibility for social interactions, roleplay, or anything other than just straightforward attack, murder, destroy, rather than anything sort of
the best
silly.
revenge murder characters are the people I found a lot of the time who don't let other people know that's their goal. Because
yes, and Talion's are way too straightforward.
Yeah, his is literally, this is my whole life goal. Like, they murdered my family, so I'm gonna basically murder as many orcs as possible and challenge Sauron.
To be fair, the funniest part of that entire... I was just going to say, the best part of that game is actually... Don't get me wrong, the fighting and the combat system is great, but the best part of that game, come on, let's be honest, is the orcs. And the reason is because of their personalities. Because the main character is such a void. He's a vacuum of personality.
Do you know what the best revenge character is? You know Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, him, because he's driven by revenge, but he's realised, crap, it doesn't pay bills.
Yes, yeah.
But I've got to do work and be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to fight you. I don't really want to, but I'll fight you. Anyhow, I wish you luck. Fight you to the death. But it's still revenge. It's his whole goal.
Well, I guess that's pretty much it now, because we're now sort of moving on to other things. So I guess, yeah, the boss is definitely the better choice. It's the most legal. It's... I'd say it's the most... I don't know if it's the most accurate, but I would at the very least say it's definitely the most easy to become as accurate without needing to have as many powers as the other two builds. So it's definitely the most legal. I'd say definitely the most campaign friendly, and it has practically zero homebrew. The only amount of homebrew that you probably find at that point is maybe potentially the guns and weapons, but as you already said, the character could be thrown into any campaign with any amount of different arrays of weapons, and it still would fit really nicely. Especially because even if you was, I don't know, say for instance, like, oh, it's a medieval campaign and you're going to play as the boss. Yes, it because you can still have the personality traits and it still works.
I mean, I kind of want to see that, and I want to see intro set in medieval times.
He creates a gang of creates a gang. It's just like, yeah, I'm gonna create them. It's like, oh yeah, so you guys are a bunch of bandits. No, we're gangsters. Just eventually get someone to invent the crossbow so you can finally hold it up to someone's head sideways.
No. See, that's what Saints Row 5 should have been. Is where instead of, remember they have the time travel device.
Oh,
Go backwards in time, and they just take over. They take over like Norway or like England during the medieval period. So just
so
like people, so like the only vehicles you can get are like horses and buggies.
That'd be so cool.
Yes,
well, I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, that's it. So yes, Sam, your choice wins this time.
And dare I say, best game series as well. Obviously. Saints Row. Out of the three here,
I think that
that's only difficult because I really love Elder Scrolls lore.
I was actually going to say the exact same thing.
But in terms of actual gameplay and fun, I've had probably. I think I would agree. I just really like the Elder Scrolls lore, which is my more appeal draw to it. So.
I like the Elder Scrolls lore a lot more, but I will say I do like the mechanics a lot more in Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, only because of the Nemesis system. I love it. It has nothing to do with the character, but like I love the Nemesis system. I really wish more games would have that, because in all honesty, if you put that in any of the two games, any of the other two games, it would make them 100 times better. And they're amazing.
Unfortunately, I think they patented that, so no one can.
They did, and I was so upset. I'm still upset. I'm still salty about it.
I mean, to be fair, Saints Row does have a nemesis system. It's called gangs.
It's
called the gang leaders.
I still think I prefer the gameplay, like the actual feel of the gameplay, more than the other two games. But at the same time, I still think, in the terms of the actual setting, Saints Row probably has a better sort of modernistic setting and a better feel, because like that whole feeling of like, yeah, I'm building up this gang, I'm doing all these things, and sort of another reason why San Andreas was really good, because they took that inspiration from that and they just sort of ran with it ever since then from Saints Row. But yeah, I'd say in the terms of lore, I'm gonna have to obviously go Elder Scrolls for that one.
Okay, do you want me to tell you how I can beat you in one way that Saints Row is better? I want you to name a character from Elder Scrolls with a personality besides Shigarath that you know in depth from the games. I don't mean from the various books surrounding it.
From the games.
Yes.
A character that has more as much personality at least as Shigarath.
That isn't Shigarath.
Clearly Nazim. There you go.
All right, I'm not gonna lie. I love Elder Scrolls, and I want you to be wrong, Sam. But you have made a very difficult play here.
Okay, name one character besides Talon and all of the characters from Lord of the Rings in Middle Earth.
Well, I mean, first of all, Frodo Baggins, Sam.
That's what I mean. Name one original character in Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor besides Talon. that is interesting.
Oh, there was that dwarf guy. I can't remember his name because he was right from the start of one of them. But there was this dwarf guy, and he's really funny, and he teaches you like how to tame a certain monster in the first game. He's really fun. But I get it's been years. It's been like half a decade since I last played the first game. But also, I was gonna say Bruise, the Uruguay. And not Uruguay. Uruguay.
Your pronunciation of things today is very interesting.
Dude, yeah, this heat. Oh my gosh. But yeah, like there's tons of different like characters that they have with their own like sort of weird wacky personality. Oh, what's his name? No, there's also another one. Ratbag. Oh my gosh, Ratbag's great in that. He's brilliant. He's a like a really scrawny orc, and he's in both of the two games, and he's really brilliant. The way that he sort of does things and deals with things. But yeah, so I'd say Bruise and Ratbag, and then the dwarven guy who I cannot remember his name.
I mean, I could probably name you every character in the Saints Row games, really, that I can think of, because they all have very unique. I don't say unique, but very open.
It's a lot more of a
very strong personality.
That's very strong.
It's what's known as a strong ensemble piece because the side characters are supposed to be a part of the story and as a part of the world itself and stuff. I'd say that's fair enough. Well, thank you very much for everyone who is listening. This is the Animite Tales Podcast Character Workshop. If you like this, please check out our website at animitetales.com, where you can use this system, build your own characters, and play a game with other people that also want to play tabletop RPG systems like this. If you wanted to check out more of our videos on the channel, it's at #AnimiteTales. Thank you very much for listening, and as always, have a wonderful night.
See you in the future!
Yeah, I always have to wait for that delay.
Yeah, same here. The delay's getting longer and longer, isn't it? Ciao, ciao for now!